All right, here we are, the very last part of chapter 35, An Age of Anxiety. We're in the last subheading of the last subheading. So we're going to be talking about basically the Nazi racial state. Adolf Hitler was a huge fan of social Darwinism, and frankly, he wasn't alone. A lot of race-based theory was really influenced by the idea of social Darwinism, that the different races have different strengths, different weaknesses. The strong should survive, and of course, they should procreate and basically force out the other races for the betterment of the species as a whole. And so his belief was this belief in basically the Aryan race, which is basically an ancient people. It is um, almost like kind of a mythical people, almost like people from Atlantis or something like that. It's this idea of this group of people that originally in ancient times kind of split up, and some of them went and conquered India, and some others stayed up in like the Nordic region. And so the idea that Hitler wanted was for his race to be pure. And so he would do a lot of pro-natalist programs to encourage German women to have as many kids as they can. I'm not talking like two or three. He would give things for women who got like five, six, seven kids. He wanted as many as possible to kind of overbreed the other people in his country. He also had a policy of eugenics for people who weren't the ideal. So he's going to sterilize over 30,000 people in his country. He is going to make abortions illegal for healthy Germans, but mandatory for different people in his country. He is going to eventually end up killing over 200,000 people with physical and mental handicaps because they don't fit what he wants. And these original ideas, which again he didn't stay hidden, is really going to be a precursor to the massacres of Jews and Gypsies later on. Just as a little bit of help, here is a pyramid here, which kind of shows you. So one of the people often have a question about is like, all right, so Aryans, what do they look like? So we're talking about like basically Nordic people. So tall, blonde hair, blue eyes, which of course means that Hitler was brown hair and brown eyes. And so what he was is he would count himself as part of the Alpine people, kind of like Western Europeans, like British, French, and Germans could kind of be in there. And he wanted to infuse as much Aryan or Nordic blood as he could into his people. Now below that, he felt like we're the inferior races. So you could be Aryan or Alpine or Western European, but if you had a mental or physical handicap, then according to Darwin, you're no good. So you should be allowed to be getting rid of. There's also undesirables. Gypsies are what we call the Romani, some of which were German criminals, homosexuals, people who made bad decisions. According to Hitler, over and over again, they should be considered subhuman. The Slavs, which, depending on how he was feeling, could have included some of my ancestors. They were considered less than the ideal, and the worst were, according to him, were the Jews and the blacks. And again, here's one of those crosses I was telling you about earlier that you could get, that women could receive for having lots of kids. Now, when it came to getting rid of the undesirables, Hitler always was pretty far out there, but a lot of people made excuses for him because he didn't act right away. What he's going to do is it's going to be a bit of a process to basically get rid of the Jews. So he is going to first try to show that they are bad people. So he is going to do a lot of propaganda around crimes that Jews committed. So, hey, don't you see? You might think they're good German, but no, they're not. Look at these horrible things. And they're Jews who are doing these things. This was obviously really influenced by the 1800s anti-Semitism that I've talked about in other lectures. And then once people are kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, they're get the idea of, oh, these aren't the best of people. They aren't the best. Then he is going to create Nuremberg laws in 35, which is going to define Jews very specifically as a race less than Germans. And so what he's going to do is he's going to prohibit marriages with them. They have to marry their kind, get rid of them out of places of power, civil service schools, get rid of some of the businesses or have them be bought up. And now once they have kind of established that, oh, these people are less than us, they are less than us, then we have this horrible night called Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass. So what is that? That is a major wide pogrom on Jews. What's a pogrom? A pogrom is a riot. And so what's going to happen is that a German diplomat, I believe, gets killed in Paris and is assassinated by a young Jewish man. And so what you need to remember is the indoctrination, which I talked about in the last um, video, had been going over and over again amongst German people, and especially the youth. And so what happened is when news flashed that this had happened, um, some Germans in leadership went on the radio and they said they did not say to go kill anybody, but they said that real Germans would know what to do. They said that extreme measures had to be taken, and so they were taken. And so members of like the private militias and the Nazi youth did horrible violence to Germans that night. It's called Night of Broken Glass because a lot of glasses were broken, whether they were houses, whether they were any businesses that were left, any synagogues. A lot of rapes happened that night, a lot of physical violence done against Jews, and there was no punishment for those who incited this riot, which was incredibly sad, um, and led to worse things later on. So once they had, said, oh, these people aren't really that good of people, and gee, are they people at all? And then violence was starting to go. Like again, it was like, okay, let's get rid of them, especially as World War II really gets going in earnest. And so what's going to happen is they're going to try to deport as many as they can, and many Jews do try to escape, get out of there. And unfortunately, a lot of them aren't able to find places to go. Many countries, including the United States, unfortunately, did not take all of the Jews who asked for asylum, which is a horrible part of our history, and other countries in Europe have to bear that as well. And then eventually, as they've tried to get rid of them, and we have the Atzengruppen and all sorts of stuff we'll talk about later, there comes a time for the final solution. What is the final solution to the Jewish question? It's not going to be ghettos. It's not just going to be concentration camps. But the answer, unfortunately, for all undesirables, especially the Jews, is to kill them all. And on that somber note, that is the end of chapter 35.